And welcome back to Fully Equipped. Your boys are here. J Wall, RB, Uncle Gene, Serial Killer. Happy US Open week, boys. It is the most grueling test in golf. And as we record this podcast on a Tuesday night, it sounds like the golf course is almost where we want it. Right on the edge, teetering between just borderline crazy and falling completely off a cliff and getting a lot of complaining come hopefully Thursday. I want lots of complaining this year. I hope they just bake that baby out, make it miserable. I want to see some like a plus. I want to see a plus score win this week.
A plus score win. I don't know if it's going to happen.
I don't think so.
I want to get back to like
they're
I want to
too
get
good.
back to like 99. Give me some scores right around even par.
Even par would be good. One or two would be good.
Fair. Yeah, even par's fair. But the way Scheffler's playing, I mean, who knows?
Now, interesting stat. What was Payne Stewart's average driving distance for the week in 1999? I think this is a Justin Ray stat that came. I saw
probably like 270, 265, 270.
You're not even close.
250.
253.
There you go. Oh my gosh.
That wet, hazy Pinehurst pre-renovation. 253. The era just before the Pro V1 came out. Put that into perspective, and then think of like what the golf course looks like now. How much firmer it's going to play this week, just in general, and the advancements of the modern solid core golf ball versus and like a ballistic driver. Now that companies are launching mini drivers because the new ones don't spin that much, and which we'll get to, and like the largest driver being like a 975J, like that. It's insane. It's like literally insane. Like I think if whatever the winner's average driving distance will probably be over 300 yards this week, and so you're telling me in 25 years, the winner's average driving distance is going to be 50 yards more. That's going to be kind of fun. Now I know that's a lot of turf.
The USGA could be listening.
I hope they are.
Don't give me any ideas. I know you're gonna use your megaphone and start screaming at everybody. It's
but I just thought that was
longer.
I thought that was very funny. I thought that was very funny. But we do have lots to talk about today. I mean, we got mini drivers to talk about too.
Yeah. So before we get into the gear, let's put our stakes in the ground. Who are we taking this week?
How do you not pick Scotty Scheffler?
Yeah.
How do you not?
You would have to. I mean, I said it in our Tour Confidential from last week. We were asked, kind of kicking around, could you actually take anybody other than Scotty? And I said, if you chose somebody else other than Scotty, you should be admitted to the psych ward. Like I don't really know how you can bet against the guy. He's practically perfect at the moment.
If you're betting favorites, it's very hard to bet against Scotty Scheffler, of course. But if you look at strokes gained and someone who would like be, I'm not a betting guy, so I'm kind of like, gathering information for what we've talked about, like internally at golf, is Alex Noren is a ball striking machine. He has played very well this year. His strokes gained approach and driving is very, very good.
I don't want a Martin Keimer repeat. I want some juice at the top.
I know, but I'm just saying, like a guy who's been playing well has that opportunity.
Don't speak that into existence.
He's 100. I think he's like 100-1 or something like that. It's somewhere around there, or like it's like that's an insane number to be. If you're someone looking for value, brought to you by. We don't have a betting sponsor, but anyways, I'm just saying.
Brought to you by fill the blank. Whoever pays us the most.
I don't want a betting sponsor because you know what? All the legal mumbo stuff you gotta read off after. You can't ad lib that. So
I used to do that. I was that guy.
We should give it to Gene. We should make Gene read all the legal mumbo jumbo because I think that would be the best value.
He would stop midway through and just walk out.
No, I wouldn't.
Uncle Gene is not reading. He's not reading all that legalese.
I commit myself. Of course, then again, I never have a script when I show up for this, so that might be a little challenging.
Say halfway through it, he's like, "This is so much bullshit." And
then he's out. He's gonna get his wine and cheese and go sit on his patio. All right, so RB's taking Alex Noren. That's what I hear. Serial Killer's taking Scotty Scheffler. Uncle Gene, who you got?
hard to bet against Scheffler, but watch out for Bryson. You know, his game is coming in, and I think that
that would be fun. That would be a lot of fun.
I would love to see
Bryson.
him, and I would love to see him and Scheffler, kind of like him and Schauffele coming down the stretch at the PGA. That would be really, really exciting. And you know, he's going to hit it a long ways, and if he can go find it when the short game's working, you know, he could be a threat. But it's just Scheffler's playing otherworldly right now. I mean, it's just, and it's so freaky because what was it, 8 months ago, the guy couldn't putt, you know, and he still was playing well, but he just couldn't putt. And everybody was like, everybody knew, they were like, man, if this guy can figure out how to putt, we're dead. And guess what?
we dedicated like an entire month's worth of podcast to Scotty Scheffler's putter. And I even think we had one where the headline for that week's pod was basically to that extent. Just what would happen if Scotty actually found a putter? What would happen if the Spider actually turned him into a world beater?
Well, and it shows, I mean, not to bite the hand that feeds, but it just shows we're all a bunch of talking knobs that none of us knew anything, because we were all like, you got to chill out, you got to not do this, you got to not do that. Well, guess what? It worked for him, testing all those stupid ass putters till he got one that worked. I mean, you know, he went through that process and everybody was criticizing him for it. It worked. So, you know, I mean,
it worked in a big way.
All I needed to do was listen to Rory. Listen to Rory and you're good.
Yeah.
Paid dividends.
Yeah,
I've been at 2 tournaments, like the last US Open, LACC, watching him on the putting green with someone sent me the video from last year. I was very unshaven at the time, talking about like Scotty on the putting green with the Titleist guys using a Newport 2 Plus and just like going with all kinds of stuff. And then even this year at Pebble when he was working with Logan Olson, who I know, again, go to the legalese on his website. He's definitely working with TaylorMade. That's no freaking lie. That's no secret at this point. But he had like 4 putters with him on the range, and then Riviera came. He's made the switch, and it's just been like an absolute freaking game changer. And he's talked about too, which is interesting, the no line on the ball has kind of freed him up as well, which I think is one of the most fascinating kind of elements that, you know, everyone talks about the putter, but there's that like mental freeing up approach, which I think has also helped a lot.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of that, I got a question because I was in the gym tonight watching the coverage.
I was in the gym. Watch out. Watch out.
What a subtle brag that was. That was good. I like that, Gene.
Well, I'm leaving for Italy and hiking the Dolomites with my daughter on Friday, so I got to get my ass in shape before I go trekking.
There's no time like right before you go on a big ass hike to get in the gym. Gene's like, damn, we're leaving tomorrow.
I'll get in shape on the trail. I'll figure it out. But
fine.
There was this Bridgestone commercial for this like mental acuity thing.
What's the
mindset? What's the story behind that? I know there's got to be a white paper that they have like said that this increases focus or something.
Yeah,
but I hadn't heard of it, and I was like, what the hell?
It was so Jason Day and his mental coach Jason Goldsmith were behind the design, and they worked with Bridgestone on kind of bringing it to life. So Jason's done visualization for, I mean, man, going all the way back to when he first came out on tour, and I can recall him. He, you know, kind of closed his eyes. You could see his eyelids flutter, and it's his visualization. And so they brought it to the golf ball where it's a multicolored design, and it's supposed to help you first basically kind of get in the right frame of mind, lock in, and commit. And the kind of the green circle in there is basically the kind of the go sign to pull the trigger and commit to the shot and hit it. So I tried it. I don't know, RB, did you try it too? It's interesting. It's an interesting design, but you know, the tough thing is I hadn't really gone through a pre-shot routine in forever, which that was fun, but it takes a little bit of time. Just like if you haven't been in the gym in a while, you gotta work the muscles out, and I had to start using the brain again when I went on the golf course, because I just check out and let the launch monitor tell me what's going on. But yeah,
Is there-
it's interesting design.
Is there any research behind it, or is it just
Almost
kind of
2 years worth.
Yeah,
Almost
yeah,
they did.
2 years. Yeah,
They worked
Really?
with,
there's a lot. There's a lot of research.
Yeah,
They've
found
done
it worked.
studies too. Bridgestone.
really?
Yeah, they
Okay.
found it worked really well with obviously Jason's a tour player, but they found it was really successful with a lot of players who were like higher handicappers who don't even go through that process and they just like pull the trigger all the time, which I think is having like talked to my dad and the friends that he plays with, like they don't do any of that stuff, and like, they go for their couple nights a week rounds of golf and they don't think about any of these things and they come back and they complain about their golf games. Like that's just kind of the way it works. And so they found that on not just on like full shots, but especially on putting, where you get the opportunity off the tee. But again, you get to use it off the tee, you get to line up your ball, but you get to line it up on the green as well. So it almost like forces you to do like a mental checklist of like, okay, like, am I actually picking a target? And it seems so simple, but it does make sense. Like to me, it does make sense that like it just gives golfers that like, oh yeah, maybe I should like look where I'm aiming. It sounds so stupid, but so many golfers don't do it. And to have that, like have those like little color coordinations, just like like a starter light at a drag race or whatever it is, like however you want to refer to it as, I think it is helpful. It's like, and that's what it's designed to do. I know we're explaining this to Gene, although I feel like Gene, come on, we write about these things. You got to read up.
He doesn't read our stuff.
He doesn't read any of these things. I
don't.
know.
Yeah, I don't.
He doesn't. He doesn't read.
I don't read
don't.
Robot Man Monthly either. So, I guess I'm even.
All right, let's get to some U.S.
I mean-
Open chatter. We could talk about mindset, but let's kick things off and kind of get into what's going on this week, because when this podcast deploys on Thursday, I like people to know what's going on so that maybe they can use it if they are gonna put a little something down. Maybe at least know who's testing, who's potentially changing. So RB, you and I have some names here. Do you want to kick things off and mention a few, and then I'll throw in a couple, and we'll just kind of kick around what's going on?
Sure. Yeah. So obviously the news today broke later in the day because of when we record this. John Rahm withdrew today. Lesion on his
Spanish
foot.
gout.
Yeah. The lesion on his foot, although he's the captain of Legion 13 or 12 or 14, whatever it is. I don't know the number. I'm sorry. I apologize. But it was bad enough that his team decided that it was not worthwhile to try and play in the tournament. But leading up to this event, he'd actually changed to a Ventus Black in his driver, which, as we've talked about and covered multiple times before, he had slowly switched his fairway shafts out over the last couple of years. Finally switched the driver shaft. Got the chance to talk to Johnny Wonder from Callaway about the switch. And basically, which is interesting because it aligns with an article that was written today and posted on golf.com about how the driver shaft is something that is a timing device that helps golfers work with their natural tempo. And you can work with a shaft and kind of find something that works, but he was just finding that his misses and his dispersion weren't working well, and it wasn't working with his feel and his tempo that he's kind of naturally worked himself into as he's gotten older and stronger and faster. And so decided to go from his Aldila Tour Green to this Ventus, found that it reduced a left miss and also helped prevent the more spinny right block. Spent some time in Carlsbad, and that was the end result. Unfortunately, we're not going to see him play this week because I would have been very curious to get all of the data on it, like his statistics. But that to me was like one that I thought was going to be very interesting this week, which was kind of like the top of my list. But I'm interested to hear your next one, Jonathan.
Yeah, I think if we're going to start the ones that intrigue me the most, Tiger Woods. So Tiger shows up this week, and I was not expecting any changes, but Tiger has been known to throw us a curveball or two, and he did win this week. So looks like he's gonna go with the P772 iron in addition to the 3 iron, which I find very fascinating because how many guys are actually using a 2 driving iron these days? Not a whole lot. But the really interesting one is with the wedges. So Tiger is a 3 wedge guy. He's pitching wedge 56, 60. That's it. And he had been using the TaylorMade milled grind 4 with his own TW grind. He shows up same TW grind, but these are not those wedges, and they are stamped Proto, PROTO, out towards the toe area. And the fascinating part is the milled grind sole is gone. These are way more traditional. We may or may not know who had a hand in designing these wedges. We may or may not have had him on the podcast for a very lengthy sit down. I think he's very familiar to Tiger's irons and wedges. We may have a building in Fort Worth, Texas. I don't know. I'm trying to lead everybody down the path here, but these are more traditional. And I find that interesting because one of the things that the draws about the milled grind initially was that milled grind sole allowed for a very exact geometry from wedge to wedge. This is now kind of going away from that, going back to more of the like hand ground and you know, I mean, that made I'm curious, guys, because I've heard stories before about when Tiger was with Titleist, and they used to send him, 4, 5, 6 sets, and he would go through the 7 irons and find the best one from those sets, and he would hand pick each club from those sets. So he's essentially mixing and matching from different sets, and I just love that stuff. That's the little minutia that just I geek out on. That gives me life. I wonder how many wedges he went through before he landed on these two, because I can guarantee you it's probably not the first set.
Oh, definitely not.
Definitely
no chance.
Not. Yeah, he probably went through at least like 3, 4, 5 maybe before he came to those. But anyway, that's the one. It's tied to Tiger. I have to mention it. So,
and the date of production is on the hosel, which people can find pictures online that match out to a company that does custom wedges and irons. And the date on them is only in May, so like they're not overly new to him, which is like kind of fascinating as well. So, he's been hitting these bumpy 4 irons. He's got these new wedges I think are designed to help a lot with the Bermuda grass that can get pretty crabby around there. Yeah. So I haven't seen a lot of wedge changes yet, but this is definitely one of them. And for someone who is notorious for not changing, it is definitely an interesting one to follow.
Yeah. What's your next one, RB? We'll just go back and forth.
Yeah. I think before we get to that, one thing Tiger really doesn't change, and he's used basically his entire career. I'm editorializing this because I know that I can't say his name, is his grips. And I think if you pay attention, you'll know that he plays Golf Pride grips. And we're happy to let everyone know that Fully Equipped is brought to you by Golf Pride and their reverse taper putter grip. Tiger does not use this putter grip. This is completely editorialized, and I'm not saying that he does use it. Because here's the thing. When you're putting, the most crucial part of putting is that split second before you get to impact. And the Golf Pride reverse taper design helps you better control the moment into impact to help square the putter face more often, no matter of your gripping style, because of the, as the title suggests, reverse taper, which kind of puts that smaller part in your top hand and a larger part in your bottom hand. So it really helps reduce that twisting and that moment into impact when you are putting. It helps produce the putter more square when you get into the ball. Now there are 3 style sizes and 2 sizes to choose from. There's the round, the pistol, and the flat. The round is a universally popular grip for all type of grip types. The pistol is the more classic grip for someone who would have their right hand low if you're a right-handed golfer. And the flats one is a more oval shape, which works well for golfers who might prefer to use a more parallel style putting grip. So not quite palm to palm. You can do palm to palm with it, especially with the large size, works very well. But it gives you all of these options with the pistol, the round, and the flat, and the 2 sizes, medium and large. So if you're curious about trying these grips out, head over to golfpride.com to learn more. They are, it's a fascinating thing to see these in players' hands because everyone grips the putter slightly differently, and it has been proven to help you square it more into impact. And having tried them, I think they're a really cool option. So again, head over to golfpride.com to check them out and learn more about the reverse taper.
There we go. All right. So what was your next one?
We talk about, I'm going to get to one I was going to say, because this guy doesn't change very often, but one that I think is even more fascinating to me is Sergio Garcia with a never compromise reserve number 4 mallet.
Whew, there's a name that we haven't heard in a while.
Like never compromise, relaunch this year, owned by Dunlop Sports under the, Dunlop is the main umbrella for Cleveland, Srixon, Zexio, never compromise, of course. And, to see him have the option to literally use whatever he wants to go and use this putter is pretty fascinating, because they have 2 options when it comes to this putter. It is a winged style mallet putter, and Never Compromise, famously known for their black, gray, black aesthetic. You can get them in all gray. They are a premium milled putter. And again, he has all of the options to choose from and to go to this. Now, my question is, as a 40-something-year-old dude, does he like the look of it because it's a nostalgic thing, which is, of course, like helpful? Is it the alignment because he's using the dual colors? Is it just something about the way that it feels? Like, to me, I would love to ask him the question, like, why this? Because at one point in time, Sergio was one of the best putters in the world. You can go find these old training aids. It's like you could putt with a ball. I don't know if you've ever seen, I don't know if you guys remember this. There was a training aid that Sergio helped sell, and it was a ball on a stick, ball on a golf shaft, and you'd putt with the ball. So it's kind of like the original, Never Compromise stubby. If anyone remembers that as well. I'm just throwing out old references today.
Keep going.
But to me, again, it's just one of those things where it's like he has every option to use different things. We haven't seen a lot of them out there on tour, but to see that he's using this is pretty darn cool. And he's not a bad putter. He's often switched throughout his career. He's always been a pretty consistent putter, and he strikes the heck out of the golf ball. So it'd be interesting to watch him play this week. Especially he paid his dues, went to qualifying, got in as an alternate. So, he's playing well enough to obviously earn his spot as well.
The next one for me is one that I think will spawn off into another conversation. But Phil Mickelson was spotted testing the new Callaway Paradigm AI Smoke Tie 340 mini driver. My gosh, that is a mouthful for the name for a golf club. And I was told he was testing with a new Mitsubishi Diamana. They have a new blue board shaft out on tour. So that's a pretty cool combination. It's also fun to see Phil testing this club because he was the brains behind the Frankenwood. And he also, he helped put X-Hot 3 Deep, the original X-Hot 3 Deep on the map. So this is a guy who is still in need of a U.S. Open to finish things up. You never know, but I think it would be cool for him to get in contention with a mini driver. And look, this is a golf club, guys, that's really started to gain some traction. If you go back to Phil with the 3 Deep, which was just a deep faced 3-wood. And then you had the Frankenwood, which, is basically they were trying to get a more workable driver, but with a smaller head. And they worked right up until the gun to get Frankenwood in the bag. And now we've started to see this, those clubs have started to evolve in the last, 5 to 7 years. And now we see multiple manufacturers coming out with mini drivers. TaylorMade has their burner mini. And now you've got Callaway with their updated version of their mini driver in the Tie 340. So they're a fascinating golf club because for tour pros, for a while when they first came out, they were very, very course specific. But now we've started to see players like Tommy Fleetwood and Adam Scott playing a mini driver on a regular basis. They have a lot of benefits, and Kris can probably speak to this, but they have a lot of benefits for recreational golfers because, if you look at the new Callaway Mini, it has a 340cc head that's double the size of the Paradigm AI Spoke traditional 3-wood. So double the size, shorter shaft. It's at 43 3/4, which is for Callaway, it's 2 inches shorter than their driver in length. It's a great. I think it's a really good club. And look, I have one in the bag. I have a mini in the bag. It's not the Callaway one. I haven't had a chance to test that one in lefty. I just have a photo sample, and I would like to test it because I love the mini, guys. You've heard me talk about it on the pod before. It is such a good golf club. I am not a 3-wood guy. I don't think that I would ever put anything in the bag ever again. And I know those are big words coming from a guy who tests all the new stuff all the time, but this thing is so much fun to hit. And it gives me a lot of confidence off the tee, especially on tighter holes. And every time I hit it, I'm like, oh my gosh, why didn't I get one of these things sooner? It's just, and so I see the benefits, and I could see a guy like Phil using it this week. I mean, they're going to be playing a very firm and fast Pinehurst. And while there are a lot of areas where you can probably miss there's some spots where you don't. And this could be a really good golf club for him. But, it also could be a really good golf club for a lot of amateur golfers out there, just simply because of what it possesses.
It makes me think of like with, and I've always felt this way, like in a tournament or anything like that, where like I kind of have the option one way or the other. I'm almost always going to go with a driver versus a 3-wood, and if it means just hitting a bunty shot with it, I'd rather do that, because you know what, the face is bigger. It's like off the tee, the face is bigger. And I think what's funny is, and this is where, like, again, using data, and like there's two sides to this. One is Phil using just the 3-wood or the 3D at a US Open with like old antiquated data from Pels about hitting fairways goes to show just how far we've come as far as golf statistics is concerned. Because now that you look at that, you realize that was probably one of the dumbest decisions he could have possibly ever made. Because now if you miss the fairway, you miss it shorter because of your dispersion pattern, right? Like, it's just, I was thinking about that today when I saw him testing it and how far statistics have come, because there's like no way he's not putting a driver in the bag. He's just giving himself a secondary option. And like from Gene's perspective, what I'd love to do is like, let's find a 350cc driver. I've got plenty of them in my basement, and compare them to a mini driver. The mini drivers have way more tech, but what they're basically saying is our modern day 460 drivers are designed, which we've proven with like robot testing and multiple strike locations over the face, which you can go check out on our club test on golf.com, is how freaking ballistic they get. Like, they are designed to launch high and spin low. Whereas you get a smaller club head, like old drivers, when we talked about Payne Stewart earlier in 1999, they launch lower and they spin more by design. Now, they had a different golf ball back then. And now OEMs are saying, okay, well, our drivers are designed to go as humanly far as possible ballistics. So let's try and tune it back, but let's give you a little bit more forgiveness. So let's give you a driver from 15 years ago, but way more tech in it, and let's see what happens. And I think it's kind of interesting. Like, it's this interesting thing, because, like, again, I'm a big fan of the Mini. I've seen fitters' opinions completely change on the Mini product over the last like 2 years. So, like, this is dumb. It doesn't need anyone's bag. And now there are multiple people that I've talked to who are like, this is like the greatest thing since sliced bread. So it goes to show how fitting has changed, how statistics has changed the way we played. And it goes to show how fitting in general for the consumer can give secondary options off the tee, especially even at lower swing speeds, because the 3-wood can be a very unforgiving club, which, as you said, Gene, like if you get a person who swings their driver at 90 miles an hour, you get them a 3-wood, they're going to hit at the same distance, but let's give them a secondary option to maybe give them ball flight and add that forgiveness as well.
Well, and it's interesting. I was thinking about it as you guys were talking about. I don't think I've tested a Mini in 5 years, because they're not available for the most part to the public. It's kind of a tour specific product. I think we've talked about it, but I'd be really curious just to put one on, and I think we should do it just to see at the shorter length. You're handicapping yourself from a distance standpoint by a number of factors. The first is length, the second is size, and the third is CG placement. And so I'd really be curious to see what the performance characteristics are, even at 120 and, to your point, RB at 85, 90, and see what these guys are giving up the bottom line is when a golf ball spins more, you're able to control it better. And that's why you control your wedge a lot better than you control your driver. And, it sounds like this mini is just a continuation of that trend of you're spinning it more. So therefore you're going to find more fairways theoretically. And you've got a little bit of more surface area than you do on your 3-wood. But in this bomb and gouge age, having that alone, I mean, I could see that as your, kind of secondary fairway finder, but not your go-to, because you're going to be 20 yards maybe, behind these other guys that are banging it out there. That, unless you're Bernard Longer at the Masters a few years ago when he was, just lighting everything up from 210 yards and hitting greens, it puts you at a serious disadvantage. So I don't know. I don't know where strategically the club fits in, especially on a US Open course.
Well, I mean, a guy like Phil is still plenty long, even 50 plus. And I think it's still a good option for him, maybe on certain holes, and it could fit the bag better than a 3-wood. But I do agree with you, Gene, because one of the things that they've been talking about this week are the domed greens at Pinehurst. And so if you're leaving yourself 2 extra clubs into some of these holes, let's just say, that could be a problem, because you're gonna want to be having as short a club as possible into some of these holes, unless you absolutely have to lay back, because as the week goes on and it gets firmer and firmer, you don't want anything with a mid launch angle coming in. You want to be throwing that thing way up in the sky and bringing it down and hoping that you can get it to stop somewhere close to the hole.
I think there's 2 parts to this, and I know it was Sean Zock from us, again, golf.com. I feel like just the plug man today. When he had the chance to talk to Adam Scott about it, he says, and what's interesting is when Mike Davis, when they did the renovation at Pinehurst number 2, the thing they asked for was the fairways slightly pinch around 300 yards. And Adam Scott said in the interview, which you can find at golf.com or Golf Magazine, that he uses it to specifically like kind of stop before that 300 yard marker. And where this plays into, which is something that Bryson talked about today, was he uses the Pro V1X left dash, notoriously low, very fast, low spin golf ball. I'm a big fan of it. And he's like, I can hit this close to the green, but if I have partial shots, I have to play and think about that more, because I cannot generate as much spin as other golf balls. Now, look, they're all premium golf balls. They're all going to spin a lot relative to like a 2-piece distance ball. But he's giving up a little bit of spin by hitting it closer to the green. So there's that option of like, I can lay back, hit a full club into these very tight targets and generate more spin. So there's like, again, there's this give and take. And I think players all have to make that decision when it comes to how they want to play the golf course. I think most players are still going to try and hit it as far as possible and give themselves, because again, statistics have proven that, the closer you miss it, your score goes down from strokes gained. The only thing is, and to your point, Jonathan, Pinehurst is very unique from a statistics perspective, because it's not like a lot of PGA Tour courses where you could miss by 10 yards at TPC wherever, and you miss by 10 yards, the ball stops 10 yards from the hole, and you have a relatively normal chip. You could miss 6 yards from your target at Pinehurst in the wrong direction, and that ball ends up 25 yards away because of the runoff areas. So there is this very unique way that this course plays because of the greens and the runoff areas that doesn't play into modern day statistics of trying necessarily hit it close and miss close to your target because you're just going to hit a wedge out of rough. You have to hit these shots. So I think that is where this could come into play, because if I hit my 54-degree wedge, 100 yards. I'm very good with that. A lot of these players are very good with their distance control with their wedges. They'd rather do that than try and hit it into 70 yards and then try and finagle a 60 to get it to stop, right? So I think that is where we could see it on a number of the par fours to try and get that full shot in to control their distances. So I think there's a reason for it. So I kind of argue the other side of that. But to your point, though, from any other course, I would say hit it. Like if this was Oakmont or Wingfoot where Bryson won before, yeah, bomb the freaking hell out of it, find it, get the club with the most amount of loft on it, and just hit it close to the green. But you can't do that here.
You can't do that there. Good luck. Although Martin Keimer, when he won, he just putted everything. He was an absolute machine that week from putting off the green. I remember that. Somebody else who putted out of their mind was Payne Stewart when he won in '99. Did you guys see what Seymour's doing? Seymour Putters. That's the putter brand that he used when he won in '99.
I will say that I read this great article on golf.com today. Here we go. There's number whatever it is that you wrote cover it, which I thought this was actually really cool. You didn't talk to me about this at all. I don't know where you even found this information, but I thought this was actually very cool.
Yeah, it is. It's super cool. Especially, I remember back in '99, I was just starting high school, and I still remember watching this major. And Tiger was wearing on one of the days like a black and red Nike shirt, and just looked super cool. And again, at that point, I was a huge Tiger fan, but I remember being so enamored with like Payne Stewart. There was something about him. He had this like confident swagger. And I remember watching it and I was rooting for Tiger, was rooting for Phil too, just for the simple fact that he's a lefty and he's, trying to win a US Open and he's been so close. And, of course he's got the, Bones has the beeper on him in case Amy calls. But I remember I was like, God, I kind of want Payne Stewart to win this thing. And he putted out of his mind during that final round. He had 24 putts during the final round of the US Open at Pinehurst. 24 putts. He one putted the last 3 holes, including he still holds the record for the longest putt to win a US Open in regulation on the final hole. There's a lot of qualifiers there, but 15 feet. And if you go to Pinehurst, you can still see the statue of Payne with his arm out on one leg. It's such an iconic shot. But the putter that he used that week was a Seymour bronze FGP. And it is a very, very, I would say, very traditional looking putter. But the neat thing about that putter was what was on the back. It was that rifle scope technology. So if you've ever putted with a Seymour before, it has a little, almost looks like a pill, little red pill just behind where the shaft inserts into the putter head. And if you have that little red pill directly behind the shaft, you can't see it. And that tells you that the putter is square at address. And so at the time, Seymour was still relatively, they were a newcomer out on tour. And Payne Stewart wins with their putter. And my gosh, the floodgates opened up. They sold over 50,000 putters in just a couple weeks. And what they ended up doing, because Payne won, was they created 1,000 of these replica versions of Payne's putter, this bronze FGP putter. Now, they did it to commemorate Payne's victory, but also it was after his tragic plane accident at the end of that year. And so instead of releasing the full run, they only sold a select batch of those, or a select number of those putters, to the general public. And then the rest they started to kind of give away to charity events and stuff, but they still had 300 locked away in the Seymour vault. And so for the 25th anniversary of Payne's victory, they are going to sell the rest of them, $400 a piece. But the coolest part about this, guys, is that these are the originals. It's not like they just decided to create some more and make them look like the ones that they sold back in '99. Like, these are the originals that have been sitting in the vault. And so they even admitted, one of the cool things, it said these putters have a vintage look to them. And this is a quote from Seymour, as they are 25 years old. But in this case, the aging has only made them more beautiful. They may, of course, be used in play, or they may be saved as a keepsake. I love this. We every major we see gear releases tied to the golf course, but this one feels extra special to me. It's tied to Payne. It's tied to a really, like, for me, a core memory as a golfer, watching Payne win at Pinehurst. So if you want them, go to Seymour's website and pick one up. I don't like pushing product on this podcast. We talk about the cool stuff that's out there and we let you make the decisions. But if you're a golfer and you remember Payne winning that, I would 100% go buy one. They're $400. Yeah, it's not cheap, but you get the putter, still comes with the original head cover, and it also comes with a black and gold engraved scorecard from Payne's 4 days at Pinehurst. Such a cool item, guys. I just loved it. So I had to write about it for golf.com, but also wanted to highlight it on the podcast for anybody out there that didn't know that those things existed. You can go buy one.
For what Kris has spent on ball markers, I think $400 for a putter seems like a pretty cool deal here. Like, I think that's pretty neat.
Chump change.
I'm not trying to Stewart Kris here when it comes to his ball markers and head cover collection, but
you're talking about Payne Stewart. I have a just sitting here right on my desk. I've got the Payne Stewart silhouette on the Paynes Valley, of course, swag ball marker. And,
of course, so cool. Of course, it's swag.
Of course, it's swag. Why wouldn't it be?
Why wouldn't it be? Yeah.
Talking about that Seymour putter reminded me actually of the Scotty Red X lawsuit putter. I was sitting there thinking about that and kind of chuckling to myself. Do you guys remember the Red X that they made that had the? Yeah, reminded me of the Red X lawsuit.
It had 3 dots that may or may not have resembled a pill in the same location, but nonetheless.
Yeah, may or may not have. It's speculation.
The red pill or the blue pill?
We've talked about that. We said, I think we talked about that before, like, because our friend Gene has some friends in litigation in Southern California there. We just need to have like a legal episode one time. We just talk about who's suing who, because it's a fascinating deep dive into the golf industry, like every couple weeks. And we don't hear about most of
it. Costco and TaylorMade, we never really...
Nothing after, yeah. They just kind of...
Did they...
Those lawsuits take years. I mean, they got to get on the docket, and there's a lot of stuff going on. So I can tell you, I can tell you, as of 3 weeks ago or so, it was still on. According to someone.
You know what you need? You need someone with some body cam footage and like a world #1 player, and then the attorney just comes in and says, we're just going to drop the charges. No harm, no foul here. We're all good. We've all seen what's going on. The pants weren't completely ruined. They could have been patched, but nonetheless, we're gonna get some new ones here for $80, all that whole bit. So, I think it's a really cool putter. I think the mini driver is really cool too, and a place where I think if you're curious about this new Callaway mini driver 340 AI Smoke, the place you can find one and pre-order is at fairwayjockey.com. They offer the world's most extensive collection of aftermarket shafts and custom equipment built to tour level specifications. They offer the lowest prices on custom built clubs, up to 20% less than the average club fitting quote from the nation's top club fitters. And you can take an extra 10% off of your order by using code FULLYEQUIPPED. That is FULLYEQUIPPED. And when you combine that with the average of 20% less than the average club fitting quote, that's 30% less than you're likely going to get from some of the nation's top club fitters. And not only that, speaking of limited gear, they also offer small batch and limited releases. They don't have the Seymour putter. You got to go to Seymour to get that. But things like limited edition Bettinardi, Scotty Cameron putters, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, the limited Cobra irons, all kinds of stuff like that. Again, head over to fairwayjockey.com to learn more and shop for all of your exotic shaft, limited edition releases, and all that. You can find it there.
Okay. So I'm going to give you guys a choice here. We can either kick around, and whatever we don't discuss, we'll save for the next pod because I still feel like they're going to be relevant. Do we want to discuss Bryson's irons and his comments that he had today at Pinehurst, or do we want to talk about a golf ball that is selling for $250 a dozen?
Can I talk about one more equipment change before we make our decision? Because there's one more thing that's really interesting.
Yeah, go for it.
So we talked about long-term relationships at the beginning of the show, of the thing with John Rahm and his driver shaft. A man who has had long-term relationships with many pieces of his golf equipment, Matt Fitzpatrick, was spotted using Titleist T100 short irons, which is very interesting. I know from speaking with people at Titleist at previous events, he does a lot of testing at their facility in England, one of their big headquarters there. And no, I guess someone must have put something in his hands. He's been a longtime Ping iron user, S55 user, went with the Blueprint S as well. Still has some the I series irons in the long irons, but he has, as of now, was spotted using the T100, which kind of fits into that category of clubs that he's used before. Smaller, more compact profile, blade kind of looking, but a lot of hidden tech inside. And the only thing I can think of, not the only thing, but like kind of the first thing that pops to mind is he's maybe looking for more spin. Again, Gene, you said it, more spin equals more control. And with the T100 versus the T100, or sorry, not T100S, the T150s, a little stronger lofted golf club, slightly bigger. This gives him really good turf interaction, smaller club head, and has the potential to produce a little bit more spin for controlling distance into greens. And that was kind of the last one that I thought was really cool heading into this week, because Fitzy's won one of these things. He's won it on a course that was pretty dry. I know it was wet kind of the last day at Brookline, but that for someone who doesn't switch very often, that to me is a pretty good sign that he's kind of looking for something right now.
Yeah. And Fitzpatrick, I remember, was it back at the Masters? I think it was, where he was complaining about the spin, just not enough spin on his irons.
Yes.
So yeah,
right.
I'm with you, RB. I think it's a spin thing, and we've typically seen with Titleist irons they're not high spin, but they've tended to be more on that higher spin side. If you were going to kind of have like a demarcation between like high spin, low spin irons, it's more on the higher side.
Yeah. And I think that plays into their fitting philosophy, their 3D fitting philosophy of like being able to control distance and control dispersion and control rollout, this like control angle of descent. So the spin makes perfect sense to me as far as what he's trying to do. And again, if there's a place where you're trying to control distance and stop the ball as fast as possible and know your distance control, Pinehurst is going to be one of the places where you're going to really want it.
Yeah. All right. So what do we want to do for a last topic here? Do we want to talk Bryson? Do we want to talk golf balls?
I don't think Bryson's irons are going anywhere. So I don't know. I'm thinking $250 golf balls. What do you guys
since
think?
you put it out there, I would say we have to talk about $250 golf balls, because everybody that's listening to this is going, who in the hell would pay $250 for a dozen golf balls? So we got to talk about it.
Yeah. So a company called Atomax, ATTOMAX, they reached out to me and said, "Hey, we'd love to have you try our golf balls." And I was like, "All right, cool. What do you got?" And they said, "We got two balls that we want you to try. We've got a golf ball for the higher swing speeds. In this case, the Atomax hard golf ball is for 105 mile an hour plus, and the medium, which is clubhead speed from 86 to 105." And I'm like, okay, cool. I hadn't done a whole lot of research on them yet, but I started sniffing around, and the golf balls actually have a pretty interesting description. So this is just straight from their website. It's a high density, hyper elastic with an amorphous metal powder that increases maximum distance and speed. In a certification test, and this is going to make Gene's ears perked up, in a certification test conducted using a WRC-approved robot swinger, the Atomax golf balls flew 15 to 20 yards more than 13 types of golf balls from 10 other brands, and certified its Atomax golf balls as the world's longest golf ball. Yes, as I mentioned, they are $250 a dozen. 250 bones for a dozen golf balls.
when I first you first reached out to me, and I went to the website, and
Here they are, by
again,
the way. I got boxes of them. This is the medium, and the yellow is the hard version.
And I originally
There you
saw
go.
the price. My first thought was, oh, this is like you get like, you see the golf ball companies that offer the subscription packages. So this must be for like 4 dozen golf balls. And then I realized, oh, it's not. Well, this is going to be interesting one way or the other. I don't know which way this is going to go, but this is going to be very interesting. So, Gene, was this one of your robots, by the way? Can you speak to that? Or you're like, what the hell?
No, I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
Who did they reference? What was the name, J-Wall?
It's at a WRC approved robot swinger.
What is WR? I've never even heard of that
Oh,
before.
I think I'm going to guess on this because of I just thought of this because of the initials there. WRC, World Record Corporation, or World Record Company, like the Guinness World Records, because it was like they were the ones that did it, or World Record Corporation, something like that. I'm going to guess it was, the Guinness Book of Records people certified that this thing was like, something that hits golf balls. So whether it's one of Gene's robots or not, I have no idea. But that's the only thing I can think of is the WRC. That's the only thing I can think of.
It's really tough to get 15, 20 yards and be conforming. I mean, you have to be up against some really shitty golf balls.
That was my question to Eugene, and I don't want to cut you off because I want you to just keep going. But it's like I figured it was vague on purpose. Vague on the golf balls that they win head to head against.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, I'm right in the middle of it, and my results are used all the time to bash others over the head. So I'm very, very sensitive to this, and it's how I put food on, the table. So, but golf balls, it's a very, very competitive market. There's a lot of really good products out there, and I mean, at really high speeds, 120 miles an hour plus, you can start to see some separation. So, the first thing you have to ask is, what speed was it tested at? And then did you compare in the same families? Meaning, was it a urethane ball versus another urethane ball? And so you really have to get into kind of some pretty exact details to really find out what those claims mean. Or you could just send me a couple dozen and I can put them on the machine and tell you what the hell they're going to do.
I would say, guess what we're going to be doing after after we get off the pod? Yeah, I'll be sending you some golf balls. But this golf ball, when I pulled it out, it has that. Have you guys seen some of like the Zexio balls, the ones that have like that pearl finish on them?
Yeah.
So there's the pearl finish. It feels very much like a golf ball offering that you would find over in Asia. And I did reach out to the company and ask them, like, are these golf balls USGA conforming? And they said they haven't received final USGA approval. They're the exact size, but they haven't received the final thumbs up from the USGA. So until that happens, it's a non-conforming golf ball. And, when I pulled it out and I started kind of feeling the cover, it's like, oh my gosh, it is a very firm golf ball. I'm not going to lie. This might be like the firmest golf ball that I've ever felt in my life. It has an ionomer cover, and it's below that. There's a casing layer that's blended with this amorphous metal powder. And you can tell by tapping your finger on the cover, it's a very clicky ball. And that was one of the first things I noticed when I started hitting shots. Was it is loud. It sounds like a two-piece golf ball. So I figured, all right, well, if you're touting it as being incredibly long, you've done your job. It's a very firm ball. It's gonna go. So I did. I tested it, driver all the way down through basically a 45, 50 yard wedge shot. And I tested it. I currently play Titleist Pro V1X, and I figured, why not? Let's see what happens. If it's touting it as being this long, it should lap my current golf ball. And what I quickly found out was that's not the case. The numbers between the two golf balls, actually during my testing, the Pro V1X was about a mile an hour faster than the Atom X ball. Also was a little bit concerned because of how firm it was, what the spin numbers were going to be. It actually wasn't too bad. I hit with a 7-iron and spin was around 6,600. With the Atom X, it was like 61. But again, ball speed numbers pretty close, but yeah, about a mile an hour faster with the V1X. Where I saw the biggest, like the most staggering delta was, big surprise here, Gene, was in that little 50-yard wedge shot.
Yeah. Well, and the interesting thing for me about just kind of perusing their website, and I've seen this over the years with companies like Liquid Metal Technology and Pixel Golf, you get a lot of these kind of research PhD university projects in search of a business application, and they go, hey, golf. And, Liquid Metal was a classic one. They came out with this iron and they had a display at the PGA show, and it was really fascinating. They had 2 ball bearings. One was made out of stainless steel and one was made out of liquid metal. And when they bounced and they came back up, the first bounce, they came back up equal. The second bounce, the stainless steel came back up like 9/10. And then the third bounce, it came up 8/10. And the liquid metal just preserved its energy. And I was sitting there staring at it, just fascinated. And one of these old equipment engineers walks up to me and he's standing there watching it with me. And he goes, this would be really cool. The only problem is you don't hit a golf ball 5 times. You only hit it once, and take a look at the first bounce. And I was like, holy shit, he's right. But what was interesting was the company Apple ended up buying them and incorporating their technology into the iPhone. So they were just looking for a way to maximize their technology. And I'm sure a couple of the guys played golf and thought it was really cool. And it had all of these cool features. Unfortunately, it just didn't really translate into any performance advantage for golf. And I'm just kind of wondering the same way. You can tout Caltech, you can tout all these things, and this technology might be cutting edge, but at the end of the day, if it doesn't create performance, who gives a rat's ass? I mean, it's like nobody's going to buy it just because it's got Caltech behind it and a bunch of fancy words. It simply has to travel further, spin more, be more accurate.
Yeah. And in this case, if you're touting a golf ball to be noticeably longer than the competitors that you tested it against, your claim here is that we are the longest. And so in this case, you're giving up something. And what you're giving up is, if you're trying to get a ball that's this, quote unquote, this long, you're going to probably be giving up spin around the green. Again, we're not trying to bash this product. This is my personal experience testing it. Gene will let the robot determine what exactly is going on too. But what I'm seeing on a 45-yard wedge shot, anywhere between 58 to 6100 RPMs of spin, and then I put in the Atom X balls, and they're like 2700 to 3100. I mean, you're not getting any grab there on a golf ball that's spinning that low. So I mean, those are like almost driver spin numbers. So it's a fascinating golf ball. I love testing products that I've never heard from before. And again, the price tag, $250 for a dozen golf balls. That just kind of, it's sticker shock, man. It just makes
$21 a ball.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right? $21 a ball.
Yeah.
And it begs the question, even if hypothetically someone was to pick up, let's say 15, 20 yards, if you're still trending,
It's a lot of distance though. That's
Sure,
like you're talking
sure.
2 clubs less into a hole.
2 clubs less into a hole. However, if the average player that hangs out in that 15, 20 handicap range picks up that much yardage, but they're still losing, $60, $100 or more worth of golf balls every round that they play, like, is that a sustainable model? Would they still sell enough golf balls to go, yeah, okay, this is worth it? Or would that player go, it's worth it for me to go on a boys trip and buy $1,000 worth of golf balls before they head to Bandon Dunes? Like,
shout out to my wife. When we were at Pinehurst a couple weeks ago, I'm gonna quote I had a golf ball that I'd used the week before. It lasted like 40 something holes. She got a golf ball at Pinehurst, lasted 60. What was it? 60. I think it was like 64 5 holes. I didn't 65 holes. It lasted number 3, number 8, the cradle, and got to the back 9 of. Yes, I think it was like 64 holes of number 10 before it finally went into the water. And it was like, wow, that's like the best value golf ball I think I've ever had anyone ever use. Which also goes to the point that you can't can be very difficult to lose a golf ball at Pinehurst when you have great caddies, by the way. Yeah. But if you're losing 3 or 4 around, or 6 around, like, it gets pricey real quick.
It gets really pricey. Yeah. Anyway, fascinating story. I'll post all my. I tested it with the Foresight GC Quad, and I'll post the data. I'm gonna have a story up for next week. This you're getting a little bit of a preview for the story next week for our latest proving ground, and also have one on testing the new Cobra limited irons. That was a fun one. So I'll have a few proving grounds for next week.
I would be curious to put a poll up on our social channel, or even open up the fully equipped hotline. Like, how much distance would a player need to see on average to justify being a loyalist for a $250 per dozen golf ball?
Let's do it.
I'm curious.
Okay.
Let's get some engagement, and
we'll put up a poll on our social handle. Let's do that.
I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm going, yeah, okay. So if I average,
that's a lot of dinero, dude, for golf balls.
You aren't kidding,
and
man.
Golf balls to me, I'm like, I'm losing. They're going. So I'm not spending $250 for a dozen, because
what does that do to pace of play?
Oof.
Oh yeah,
I'm taking 7 iron off the tee on every hole just so I can make sure I keep every golf ball in my bag.
Can't tell you how many times I've been on the first tee, new golf course, crack open a fresh sleeve, tee that bad boy up, and see it just send.
Yep.
OB or off into the woods, or and then you're just like, son of a bitch, and it's just, there's nothing more infuriating than you take the time to put your mark on it and tee it up and watch it just go careening off into the shit.
Yeah.
But it never fails. You pull a junker out of the bag that you've played 45 holes with, tee that bad boy up. It's like an old friend that goes right down the middle of the fairway.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I'm curious what people say.
We'll put up a poll.
Reminds me of my biggest fear is that if I ever get a hole in one, it'll be with some junk golf ball that I just pulled out of my golf bag, and then it's like, now I
100%. It's gonna happen. No,
can't do it with some like brand new golf ball that'll like sit up there. It'll be like just junker with someone else's mark on it that I was just messing around with.
Somebody else's initials.
Like, oh, did you mark your ball with that? It's like, well, no, I found it and I just happen to get a hole in one with it now. It's just very unfortunate.
I'd
have to get one.
It'll make for a good story.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, cool. Let's wrap this week's episode of Fully Equipped, episode 244. We're getting closer to 250. I don't know if we do anything like fancy for 250. I feel like we just do it for the big round numbers, the 100s, 200s, and 300s. Maybe we'll do something. I don't know. Bit of housekeeping. We will not be doing a usual pod next week. We will be deploying an interview. RB's going to be traveling for a work trip. Kris is going to be busy as usual. Gene's going to be hiking somewhere in the Dolomites.
The Dolomites, yes.
Yeah. and I'm going to be on vacay. So no pod next week, but we will have an interview. It's a good one. I don't even know if we want to tease it. Nah. I'll just leave for next week. As always, if you want more social goodness from us, check us out. We are at Flow Cup Golf on YouTube. Please subscribe and like if you haven't already. And we're also the same handle for the Instagram and at fully_equipped on Twitter. Happy US Open week. Enjoy the carnage at Pinehurst. And we'll see you in a few weeks.